Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Foojan.
Listen up if you want to promote your personal growth and self-awareness. I found the Foojan app last month and I have been absolutely loving it. I personally have never learned guided meditation, but thanks to this app, I now have learned incredible tools for my own stress relief and emotional self-awareness. Not to mention, there are self-evaluation tools and professional coaching available to utilize however your journey to self-discovery takes you. Join Foojan today and redefine your life one step at a time.
Do you wish to wake up one day and hit the Life Reset button? Life Reset, the awareness integration path to create the life you want by Dr. Foojan Zeine, helps you navigate crucial life areas, heal the past traumas, and cultivate fulfilling relationships and careers. Life Reset is your guide to a profound journey to reshape your life. Grab your copy on Amazon or Audible now and embark on a path to a more joyous and fulfilled life.
Welcome to the Inner Voice, a Heartfelt Chat podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Foojan Zeine, psychotherapist and author and the creator of the Awareness Integration Theory. So thrilled to have you join me today. It's a tough conversation and I learned a lot, and I hope that you enjoy it as much as I did. In this episode, I chat with Hamed Farmand, whose mother was incarcerated for 5 years when he was 6 years of age. And he's a founder and the president of the Children of Imprisoned Parents International, COIPI. He studied the fundamentals of psychology at Nova College and under the mentorship of Dr. Shervin Assari, gained a deep understanding of the psychological impact of parental incarceration on their children. Hamed serves as the board member of the International Coalition for Children with Incarcerated Parents and is a member of the Global Prison Nursery Network, where he shares his research on children living with their mothers in the Iranian prisons. He has earned several prestigious certifications, including Child Protection, Children's Right, and Theory and Practice from Harvard University, a MicroMasters in Social Work, Practice, Policy, and Research from the University of Michigan, and a certificate in Resilience in Children Exposed to Trauma, Disaster, and War from the University of Minnesota. He is also certified in advocating social justice and change from the University of Adelaide. Although his personal experience and a lot of his research has been done about the imprisonment of the parents, political prisoners in Iran, but he expands that into Farsi speaking with Afghans and then people around the world in Africa, and then United States and Europe. So he has a vast amount of research in how to work with the children, what the society can do, what the policies can do, and how we could support as a citizen, as a community, how we could support all of that. So I'm sure that you will enjoy the conversation and learn as much as I've done. Now, be sure to subscribe to this podcast, my YouTube channel, and connect with me through my website, foojanzeine.com, or any of the social media platforms, and share your thoughts with me. I'd love to hear from you. Now, without further ado, here is Hamed Farmand.
Eliminate stress, reduce anxiety, and decrease depression. Dr. Foojan Zeine's Awareness Integration Theory has helped thousands like you get incredible life-changing results. The Foojan app gives you her evidence-based treatment in the palm of your hand. Download today.
Intentional Parenting, a practical guide to awareness integration theory, written by Dr. Jafari, Dr. Foojan Zeine, and Dr. Manoukian, 3 experts in human development, is your step-by-step guide to raising a healthy child prepared for a culturally integrated world. You're supported in parenting infants to adolescents using the latest evidence-based scientific research on parenting. Order your copy on Amazon now.
Well, I'm so delighted to be with Hamed Farmand. You have been really researching and working, not only researching, but really practically working with many children that their parents have been incarcerated. You've had a personal experience in that. And I'm so grateful to have you here so we can share with the world, what's, what the experience is from someone, who has to go through this, and then what are some of the traumas that are there? What can the rest of us do? Part of it is understanding, having the compassion, but what else can we do? But first, to welcome you and kind of share, what about your story and how that story created the space for you to want to be there for others?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's my honor to be in your show and your program, and really appreciate to touch this important thing. This is my important theme that we can talk about. As you mentioned, it was 1980s that my family go through the incarceration in different ways. That my uncles, my mother, and my grandmother's mother. But main things that touched me was my 5 years of incarceration of my mother. But I sort of forget it for almost 20 years until it was 2000, 2001 that it was the wave of arrest of some not activists, was bloggers at that time, and one of them. The wife was my co-worker. I was a journalist at that time, and she had a blog and talk about her child experience through the father's incarceration, and it just bring everything back to my life. And since then, I started writing a blog and then thinking about the situation of other generation have, and my main focus since that time was how society can do, how caregivers can do, how the parents, when they come back, can do to make the life of children be better. I personally, I hope that we live in a life that no prison exists in the world, but we are far from that. And until the wars separated children from parents in many ways, or politically, or from different crimes that their parents commit, we need to support the children. We need to help them to not their well-beings violated, but they're not their rights violated. They still have right to play. They still have right to be happy, to live. So that was the motivation to work on that until and it was 2012 when I settled in the United States, and I thought, okay, maybe it's time to do something about my dream, do something about what's touched me and what I lived with that for a long time. And I started doing research, and it was really, for me, it was shocking because I didn't have any research and I didn't have any background on that. And when I read a book, All Alone in the World, that was the journalist write the book about the most of them African-American children experience, and I could see my experience in that book too. And it told me that no matter why our parents are in prison, where we live, and what our general experience is, most of what we face is really similar. And then I did the research about the Europe and the other prison system around the world, and then say, yes, we can do something together to help all children. Most of my work, part of it was in the US, but most of it about the Iranian families. But I also share my experience with other colleague of mine in the International Coalition of Children with Incarcerated Parents, and we learn from each other to see what else we as a society, we as a human being can do to make their life better.
Absolutely. Hamed, is it different dynamic? I know that for any child, when their father or their mother is yanked from the home and put in prison, and they're not able to see them, or very rarely, but they're not in their life anymore every day, that there's a trauma that happens for the child. But is there a difference when the parents have been incarcerated due to like political issues, or versus a parent actually have done a crime? I'm assuming there's a difference, not because the parent was yanked away, but because of the way that the society treats them or the family. Am I accurate about that?
Yes, in some way, but it depends on the situation as well. I've faced with that question since I began my activism in this area, and I wasn't sure about the response, but my first response was based on the book that I read and experience that I see in that book that was written for children in United States. I thought it might not be a huge difference. And through my activism, through my research, and through the working with different group of families inside my country, I found that the difference is more about the access, the caregivers and families of those children have more access, if they are political prisoners, have usually more access to services, not only the services available, for example, the psychologists, the social workers. There's a lack of, not always, but usually the lack of stigma around them, so they can go and ask for help. They also have more, maybe have more education and more knowledge about the parenting. So all these accessibility and less inequality that they face with help children of those families to have a less traumatized situation. But there is still lack of education generally about the situation of parental incarceration. My work in 10 years, I still see that families do the same mistakes that my parents' generation did, and people around the world does. They lie about their incarceration because they think children don't need to be harmed, but that's news. They filming those children, put it on social media. They do something wrongfully, but unconsciously that may put more pressure on children. But the other things happens. Some, at least I can't talk about all political prisoners in different countries, but at least in my country, it may apply with the different culture as well. In some political prisoners are not same as others. For example, if you are belong to the group, the political group that most people hate them or don't like them, they definitely hate their children as well. They don't care about their children as well. And I had a public conversation with some activists in a social media in X, Twitter space, and those activists told me a story about those political prisoners, that they are isolated, they are separated from others, and nobody wants to talk with them. And also there is a ethnicity minorities in my country also have some sort of a stigma around them as well. There was a long, wrong stories about them published by the states news agencies and propaganda around them, that many families believe that and they don't make a connection with those. So we can't generalize that, but most of them, as my experience, have at least some sort of, most political prisoners have at least some sort of accessibility. That's the prison of general crime, because of most of them related to the poverty don't have those resources.
So you talked about the mistakes that partially parents who are caretakers and caregivers might do, or the extended family or the society might do toward the children, regardless of whether the imprisonment was due to crime or political reasons. Can you share, based on not only, kind of like your international research that you've done in the US and, different kind of demographics in Europe and Iran, what are some of the mistakes that you see that has been happening where, and instead of that mistake, then what else can we do as a society to minimize some of the trauma, at least for the next generation?
Yeah, the one public mistake that's really general in many countries, they do, then in most of the guidelines they address that, is to not telling the truth to children. You can't hide it from some children who are, most of them is in the teenage years, but for others, they try to hide the truth from them. And especially when it gets longer and you started to telling them some sort of stories about they are going for work, they are abroad, they are making many stories. It's harder when they grow up to start telling the truth. So you continue telling that lie to them. So it affects them by minimizing their contact with that the incarcerated parents. That you don't bring them for the visiting. You can't usually can't talk to them and make their phone call. Sometimes they do, and in some cases, I heard first the stories happened in Europe, and then I heard it from the Iranian families as well, that they said, okay, it's not safe to bring the children to the prison, that we lie to them, but it's safe to talk. And then most prisons make the pre-recorded call, that this call have been made by the prisoners from the prison. And that children are shocked. What's going on? And then they started to make another story about that, or telling the truth in a not safe space. So that's
because the children will ultimately, as they're growing up and they're hearing the story, they also lose the trust toward the parent that is out there, and their uncles, their aunts, and friends of the family. They lose trust on everyone. So you could see not only they lost one parent, now they lost the trust about everyone, and they can't really hang their hat on anything, whether it's the truth or not. And then they have to be split also, because they probably shared the same stories with their friends and people who are out there. And now that they know the truth, they also have to keep going with the lie, now knowing that this is a lie. So there's a lot of split off that happens.
That's exactly what happened. And another things happened is the children thinking if he is working, does it mean that I'm not worth it to come back to see me and to call me and why we can't go and visit him there or her there?
So they
So
assign it to themselves that I'm unlovable. That's why they're not coming back and wanting to be with me.
that exactly happened. So the first thing I try to tell them that it's hard to talk about this hard situation, and it comes with many more uneasy questions. But it's really important to have to sit with them and in the friendly version and based on their age and their understanding, talk about what's happened. And you don't need to go deeply to the trauma, but at least tell them what's happened and make the family place safe enough that they can ask you as much as question they want. And if you don't know, that may happen to many other questions that children have, but you can tell them, you can walk with them in that darkness. So it's really important. And another things happened is, okay, children witness, like myself, witness their parents have been arrested. So there's nothing to hide from them, or they are old enough to see and to hear and to know about that. And then they will be unseen. Nobody think about them. We are not in the same stage of trauma. Children traumatized in different area, in different level, and you have to talk with them. You have to have a conversation time by time. We have a visiting in sometimes there was abandoned, but most of the time in those 5 years we had visiting, but each visiting time, before and after, we feel some different kind of feelings, not just excitement, but sadness and loneliness, many different feelings or mixed feelings that we have, and nobody talk about it with us. So I also have try to find some guidance and talk with them, and most of them, they know what they can do, but they don't know it's important to do. So we just talk with them. That's really important. Find a way to talk about your child's feelings and help them to regulate, help them for their resilience. And sometimes, especially the older children, was in the teenage or close to end their childhood, families look at them as an adult. They don't see them. They don't see that the resiliency on their children is not something that's in their blood. You have to build it. You have to help them to be resilient. And sometimes they look at it as a trauma that's stuck with the children, and it's something that states made it, the government made it, and they ruin their childhood. It's a trauma. It's happened, but there's still ways that we can help them not live with it for in their adulthood as well. So these types of mistakes that looks simple, but it's really important. And
so there's a lot of trauma that happens for the if they are married, for their spouse, because obviously the spouses also have been taken away. So I could see where the spouse themselves now have the sole responsibility of taking care of their child or children on their own. There could be a lot of financial issues that are there. There's a lot of survival of all of it, like even public shame for the person who is an adult and who is supposedly a mate. And a lot of people could see the mate as part of, kind of like being part of the crime or partnership in the crime. And then they, in the same time, while they have to take care of themselves, have to be able to even take care of their children and see each of the children in different ages with their needs. So I could see how it really disrupts the whole system in some way. And they do really need support to be able to get through this. But also there's a concept of rage that happens toward the government or the police or the system. And I've also seen, and I wanted to know your opinion about this. I've seen some research that also shares that a lot of the children, especially teenage ones, they become so enraged about this whole thing that they want to like rebel. When they have they become a teenager, there's a rebelliousness that they want to do against the system. And sometimes this type of rebelliousness, unfortunately, gets them into the same situation and then gets them incarcerated. Some of them want to do this in a fantasy that I want to be with my dad, or some of them come in this fantasy of, oh, my dad or my mom or so, and this usually happens, I think, with male bonding, that they're tough and rough, and I want to be the tough and rough one, and I want to go there. So you could see some kind of this type of a generational trauma and behavior that happens that at times is like it's self-sabotaging from one generation to the next generation. What is your experience with your research has shown you in different demographic about this?
What I found and I in my activism more focus on that is it's more systemic to personal. I mean, most people put the political prisoners behind. We'll talk about the general population of prisoners worldwide. Most of them have some challenges before being incarcerated. And most prison and legal system in the world, and I had the research about, and I work in the US, and I work virtually for Iran, and I found that most system there was they call it imprisonments of the criminalization of the poverty. So most families who are in prison because of the drug, because of the sex workers, because of the homelessness, and many challenges that's linked and strong link with the poverty and inequality. So when we look at that, we see that before that, their children have lack of access to education, to health system, to many basic needs and basic rights of themselves. And then we incarcerated their parents, most of the time their father, and their main source of finance source removed, and put more financial burden on the families as well. They need money also. And we also have to look at the gender inequality as well, that the mother who are taking care of children not have enough skills, not have enough education because of those inequality. And if they have all of this, they are still fighting with inequality in a job. So these things make this situation of children more harder to achieve their goals, to achieve their educational needs and other things that they need for their themselves. So, and we also there was a really powerful conversation. We had it. It was in English, and we translated in Farsi, also published it. between the American and I think Scottish girl, two girls together, both as a father in prison, and they were talking about they are dealing with the stigma around them, and some stigma promoted by media, but based off the facts, based off the research. And they said, okay, this percentage of the children who have parents in prison drop from school. This percentage of children who have parents in prison end up with imprisonment. And she said, it's stuck in my mind. From the beginning, they told me, you're not make it. You can't finish school. You may be in jail or prison at the end. She was on the top of his class and she graduated, but she had to work harder, many harder than others. I had kind of same experience, but not as same as she did because of we are not dealing with the poverty and those inequality that they live. But at least in the 5 years that my mom was in prison, I thought I have to be top. I have to not making any mistake. That was because of the fear that we had. If they figured out, they called okay, next morning, come with your mom. And so my mom is I can't say my mom is in prison, but I understand that some children have this experience as well. They told me not only that video that I said and other testimonies that I read, but I saw some reach out to me in my social media as well and told the same stories that they want to be taught because they didn't want to be like that. It was in one way, it's really good. It's positive, but in another way, it's a lot of pressure on that child. They couldn't be a child. They couldn't play, be happy, and do something stupid as a children. So that's what I found in my research.
I think you're very accurate that each child finds their own coping mechanism in how they have to cope with life without their parents. And depending on what age they are and what situation they are, I think they pick and choose how to survive. If someone has to become the breadwinner because, one of their family members is gone and they have to become the breadwinner, that puts them into a whole different perspective of how to do that. Now, sometimes they have to become doing something illegal in order to get the money, or sometimes they be the best that they can be in order to take care of their children, other sisters and brothers or the siblings. And I've worked with a lot of people here in the United States where they've been they've been privy about this matter where there were years that their parents or one of their parents was in prison. And at one point, I had a client who, because her mother, both of the parents, due to political prison, they were both there, and she was only like 1 year old. Even the child wasn't in prison. Even the child was in the prison for almost 2 years, from age 1 to 3. And we had to work a lot of the traumas were not, were so innate in their body because they didn't have words to be able to do that. But then they would separate the child from the mother because at the time they had to take the mother for questioning or just making her upset and trying to have her talk. So there was a lot of trauma that happened, for example, and how the dissociation happens, especially as the kids are younger. There's a lot of dissociation that happens through this process that they go through. But yes, there's so many different kind of coping mechanisms that they have to figure out and how to survive. And you're absolutely right that they're no longer a child. They have to become an adult without having the mechanism to become an adult, the resources or the skills to become an adult. So they kind of like fake it until they make it. And some people become overachievers and they become really obsessive about, being, like you said, everything right, because I don't ever want to have this. And then the others that, that will go and kind of continue doing the same kind of behaviors because they're so enraged and they want to prove something that they go through the rage. So it depends on whether the fear is higher or the fear or the shame gets higher or the rage gets higher on top of it. And it depends on who's around you, because if you are left with a group of people who stop protecting you and telling you that you got to be somewhere, you'll be a different way versus if you are, the community is more of the community of, as you shared, the poverty or the gang related and all of that, you will get fed in a whole different way in how to, cope with all of this. So as you're sharing this, what is it that we can do as a community, as a society, if we know someone who's going through this? What can we do? How can we offer as, citizens? To be able, obviously, there are policies and different types of things that we could talk about, but what can we do as citizens in order to be able to help some of those matters, to minimize the trauma at least?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because we have responsibility for all children, and we have to make the world safer for all children. First thing I always say is to educate ourselves about the trauma, about the parental incarceration, about the children's rights. And even in the United States that doesn't sign the Convention on the Right of the Children, but there are still basic rights of children. It doesn't need to be actually signed in the paper. But that's the first step, and it's the deeper knowledge that we need. It's depend on the situation that we have. The teachers need some other sorts of knowledge. That, for example, I had a brief workshop for teachers in Virginia, United States, that we talk about some simple things. There's a Mother's Day, there's a Father's Day, there's a Christmas or other holidays. Then you bring it up with joy, and you want to make children happy, to talk about some things, but you may affect some children who lost in any way, especially in tragedy like the incarceration, their mother or their father, and they don't have those sharing experience that others have. So it's really important to, even if you don't know your children go through this trauma, that's our job to make this place safe. Everyone can come and share it. But even if you don't know, it's important to be careful about it, to find a creative way to not leave it behind and not talking about the elephant in the room. So that's the educating ourselves is really important. And we also can play in different role in the life of children, like the mentorship, like being a role model, and also helping their caregivers. The caregivers, there was a camp, the summer camp in Virginia, and one of their, and it was not the only goal of that camp, but one thing that we share is, and we feel it with the face of those caregivers, that we give them break at least 7 days a year. So they will be free of those challenges that they face, and they do whatever they want. But the neighbors and the community can do better and can do more. And also, it's really important to mitigate the stigma. If the system doesn't do their job, but we can do that. We can with this education and with being careful about the wording that we use and everything that we use, we can help that to not putting more pressure on children and help them to leave that area, and making some services available. If we have some sort of skills and knowledge, like the psychologists, social workers, use that. If we don't, maybe we have money, maybe we have time to serve some other organizations that need some basic needs for doing their job, like the organizations that around. We can search it. When I was there, I searched and I found many organizations working with the prison system, and I volunteer my time and for me, it was educational, but for many others, it was personal to keep the wheels to round and help these families. And
it's more about how to come to see what the need is. It could be a need that the whole system needs, that the mother of a children who her husband has been taken away possibly can use some help in, whether it's financial or food related or service related, or just taking care of the kids at once in a while in order for her to have some time. Even if a gentleman, his wife has been taken away, they need help with babysitting, with anything that can be around it. And also for children, I think mentorship was great. Sometimes we could mentor them, be like a big brother, a big sister, a good uncle or an aunt, and really take them and show the world to them and take them and create whatever we have as a wisdom to also offer them, so that they know that they're not alone, that there are so many people who care for them while, they have to go through this transition until they can have their parents back. Hamed, is there anything we haven't shared? We're coming to the close of our conversation. Anything we haven't shared that you really want people to know?
I think we touch many things, but I still want to focus on stigma, because really, I think really important in every place that we live. It's really real, and we look at the people and hear about their and what they've done, and we judge them, and not only themselves but also their children, their families, and we abandon them for their getting help and getting support. Showing them support and helping people, it's not just giving what they need and what their right is, but also these empathy help them mentally to survive and to have the mental support they need. So it's for me, it's really important, because I was talking with some community members, and I see that they're still looking at as a personal choice, that they choose to be some people to be incarcerated and to be in prison. For me, it's not a choice. Imprisonment is not a choice. And so if we look at it, if we change our point of view, we may change our, hopefully change our system, that not putting in prison people who need services, who needs supports. So, and also shift our way to support their children as well.
And I believe even if we go with a conversation of there are some behaviors that people chose to do and the consequences was incarceration, which they didn't choose the incarceration. And that yields more about the criminal incarceration versus the political one. However, the children did not choose this. So no matter how we feel and think about the person who was incarcerated, I think there's a distinction about how the children and the next generation will still need support in order for the trauma not to go from one generation to the next. And we could do that. We could possibly support the next generation from not continuing the trauma or some of the behaviors if they even were the cause. Thank you so much. How could people find you, Hamed?
The organization is COIPI.org, as in English, and COIPI-FA.org in Farsi. And also my personal social media, I'm in Twitter space, with they can find my name, and in Instagram. These two usually write in Farsi, but in LinkedIn, I share some research or some thoughts that I had in English as well.
Beautiful. And what does your organization do? You have a nonprofit organization.
Yes.
Yes. What does the nonprofit do? Who does it give service, so that people know that if they can support you in any format, what would they be?
Right now, two main things that I do, that we do. One is the services and education for Farsi audiences who needs the support for supporting their children, and educate activists or professionals who need understanding of the trauma of incarcerated parents. So which support goes through to these services, not only the Iranian, but also around Iran and Afghanistan and outside in exile. But on the others, things that we focus on, and these experience also share with the coalition that I mentioned, that International Coalition for Children with Incarcerated Parents worldwide. We share our knowledge together, and it's going to expand the guidelines and other tools that we need to be available to address the needs of children in different culture and place. And some of our works helps children in India, in North Africa, so or South, and we help each other. And the other thing is to do some research about the children who live with their mother in prison, inside of prison, and these research also shared with the Global Prison Nursery Network. Again, we worldwide members, we share our knowledge together. And again, this could be another guideline to how if we have to incarcerate the mothers or caregivers in some countries, father, and based on best interest of the child, we want to keep it with that caregiver, how the situation should be to not put any more harm on children. So these, the point of view of different cultures, different experience is really important to make that tool and guidelines and toolkits available for every situation, not only the situations that we usually heard about them, the US or North America or Europe, but also other countries that's more similar to the situation of Iran. So when we talk in some countries in South Africa, in South America, or in part of the Asia, we feel that our experience is more similar, and we need to hear more about each other so we can develop those experiences as well. So, and these things that I mentioned, I mentioned, it's related to the first one, but also it's globally helping children in different countries. But because we are almost leading Iran leading the numbers of death penalty. One of our focus area for helping children whose parents are in prison are about the parents are in a death row or have been executed. So it's also because we are unfortunately leading that. So everything that we can help around to getting testimonies and having services available for them, it can help other children in different countries who are facing with this tragedy as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you for spending the time and being with us.
Thank you so much for having me in your program.
For all of you who are out there, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you. And until next week, bye-bye.
Are you a psychotherapist looking to enhance your practice? The Awareness Integration Therapy developed by Dr. Foojan Zeine is a comprehensive guide to the principle and techniques of this powerful therapeutic approach. Join the growing community who have elevated their practice and expanded their skills by embracing awareness integration therapy and witnessing its life-changing impact. Order your copy on Amazon now.